A very warm welcome to everyone, and thank you for joining us today for the launch of the Strengths Profile book. We are delighted to have you with us, and thank you for investing your time to join and learn about all of our exciting updates, and particularly the practical steps that we are taking to try and enable and strengthen all of you in your work on strengths as well. I am Linley from Capp, and also joining me on today's webinar is my colleague Trudy, Bateman, Head of Strengths Profile. We have worked tirelessly, a royal week, as Trudy's done 99% of the work, on revising and updating the Strengths Profile book over the last year or more. I'm delighted to bring this with you today to introduce some of the changes and updates that we've made, and also a lot of the practical applications that we are now able to take forward. We have worked tirelessly to improve this new edition, and so throughout this session we are going to do two things. One is to introduce the new edition and talk through some of the updates and changes that we've made and the reasons for those. And then for the second part of the session, I'm going to hand to Trudy, who will talk to you about using strengths to be your best self, and who will introduce the self model. And then finally, we will take responsibility for questions, and we'll be delighted to hear from you and to dive into any of the topics or areas that you would like to know more about in relation to strengths. Any questions that have been itching away that you'd love to get an answer for, that's what we are here for today. As many of you will, I'm sure, be familiar, but just in case for anyone who isn't, Strengths Profile is a model of the assessment of strength that is based on measuring strength according to three dimensions. The first of those is performance, how good we are at doing something. The second is energy, how we feel when we're doing it. And the third is use, how often we get to do it. And depending on your response to those three dimensions of performance, energy, and use, each of the strengths will be categorized into one of the four quadrants. It may be a realized strength, something that you perform well, that you find energizing, and that you use regularly. It may be, by distinction, an unrealized strength, something that you perform well, find energizing, but use slightly less. Or it could be a weakness, something that you are actually not very good at, something that you find draining or de-energizing to use, and that you may or may not use to a great extent. Or it could be what we refer to as a learned behavior, something that you are actually good at but don't enjoy doing, so something that is de-energizing for you, but which you may still need to do and need to use, particularly because it's likely that it could be something that you need to do at work and in the workplace. When we developed the original Strengths Profile model, probably 10 or 12 years ago now, we expected that the aha moment for many people would be their unrealized strengths. We thought that our gift to the world was going to be helping people to understand what their unrealized strengths were and to think about how they could use those more. But what we were actually really surprised by was that the real aha moment for so many people was learned behaviors. It was recognizing that I can be good at something but not enjoy doing it, and that distinguishes it from being a strength. Very often when people think of strengths, they think of a strength as being something that is a thing that they are good at, and they don't take into account the energy component. And so being good at something, if you are good at it but don't enjoy it, that can be quite confusing if you think that the advice is always to use your strengths more. And so the real aha that we've seen over the last decade or so has been people appreciating this distinction with learned behaviors and recognizing that it's entirely possible to be good at something but to not enjoy doing it. And so the advice for learned behaviors is to use them when needed. Don't depend on them all the time, but know that they're there to be counted on when you need to. For weaknesses, the advice is to use them less, and we talk in various points throughout the book about how to minimize weaknesses and make them so that they are effectively irrelevant for what you're trying to achieve. For unrealized strengths, the advice is to use them more, to make the most of them. And for realized strengths, the advice is to use them wisely. We're often asked if it's possible to have too much of a good thing, if it's possible to overplay a strength and take something too far. And very possibly, with the exception of judgment, I think it is possible to overplay any strength. I think it could be the case that judgment is the exception, and judgment isn't a strength that can be overplayed. But I'm open to any comments or feedback in relation to overplayed strengths. And that's also a theme that we've picked up in some of the changes that we've made in the book, which I'll go on to describe next. So in the first part of the book, in the first part of the description of each strength, we have introduced a new section which is about understand me. What we realized and what we understood from a lot of conversations with people who were using the book in different ways was that what they would often do is use the description of the strength as a way to help them talk about themselves and describe who they are and what they can do. And so the understand me section has been written to give that description of the strength, but in the first person, so that you can imagine somebody saying that for them themselves. What follows is the describe me section, which includes a series of quotes that we've harvested from people over the years that describes what that strength looks like in practice. So if you have that strength, there's a very good chance that you will recognize some of the quotes in that describe me section. Following the describe me section, we have people like me, which was previously the Hall of Fame. And the Hall of Fame, or people like me, has been updated extensively with a number of new faces. And really that's for two reasons. One, because we have had to update some villains who were in the people like me, who are no longer probably representative. But also that's given us the opportunity to bring in some new heroes and new people for us all to look up to. One of the things that we have worked extremely hard to do is to ensure that throughout the 180 different entries in the people like me, we have a perfect balance between male and female people included. So in whichever strength you are looking at, there will be at least one male or female and two of the other, and across the strengths as a whole, that will balance out perfectly to be 90 each. So some really exciting updates to the people like me. And then what we are most proud of is how we've really developed the work around application and using the strengths in practice. So we have an apply yourself section, which enables you to think about how you can develop that strength and use it in practice. We have coach yourself, which is what enables you to think about how to get the most out of the strength and use that in practice, as well as what to watch out for. So recognizing that, as we talked about a moment ago, strengths can be overplayed, and so we need to be attentive and sensitive to the fact that we can fall into the trap of sometimes taking things too far. And then bringing all of that together, we have the Be Your Best Self model, which is collated advice about what you need to do to realize the best of your strengths and apply them consistently to achieve the best results throughout your life. So at this point, I will hand over to Trudy, who will take us through the using strengths to be your best self. And again, just a reminder that we are very pleased to take any questions as we go through, and also we'll take questions at the end, and looking forward to that discussion very much. So Trudy, over to you. Thank you.
Brilliant, thank you. And again, you'll hear from Alex at the end. Your challenge is to come up with the most inventive strengths question that will keep him on his toes throughout the next 15 minutes or so. So a very personal, warm welcome from myself as well. For the rest of the webinar then, as Alex has mentioned, we're going to talk about our new model that we've introduced in the book. It's also on our website, so I will just show that at the end as well and how that will come together on our site, which is essentially is a model but also resources, bringing how to be your best self together through a series of steps that you can take and also things that you can do to be your best self. And again, it's not only been designed for your coachees and your clients and your customers. Think about yourself in this journey. Alex and I ran a face-to-face book launch in London a couple of weeks ago to some strengths practitioners, and a lot of them were saying, I've so forgotten about strengths and applying them to myself. So I challenge you here again is to, as we're going through the model, think about some things that you can be doing yourself as well. Before we just work through the S, E, L and S, I just want to talk about the fact that strengths is a journey. And I guess, so Alex and I have been working together for now, just over 9 years, and in our experience, the what next is probably one of the most frequently asked strengths questions. I'm sure most of the names I recognise on here on the call, you would have heard them as well. What do I do with my profile? How do I use strengths in my team? And hopefully, how can I develop my strengths further? So strengths, they are a journey. It's an approach to adopt for the rest of your life, rather than something that you show interest in today or download or next month or even next year. But whether you're someone who simply wants to be their most authentic self every day, or an organisation perhaps thinking about adopting a strengths-based approach, you have to consider the journey that you want to take them on. It's about changing yourself and the work culture. It's about changing the way that you talk, think and react to situations. And it's about taking ownership of what you do and when you do it. And this is something that I know Alex holds very dear to himself and has told many of us at Capp as we take strategic decisions. Sometimes it's about saying no as many times as you may say yes, particularly in that lower half of the quadrant. Personally, one of my own greatest strengths journeys, I guess I've been on with one of my strengths is personal responsibility. Many of you will probably recognise this in your coachees as well, perhaps even yourself, but I've worked hard to push it down my strengths profile into a lower realised strength so that I can delegate and enable my team better rather than think perhaps I need to be in control of everything. So now, when I'm asked to get involved, I like to remind people of what they can bring to the situation themselves. Well, what really excites me about this journey is that it makes my legacy strength shake with anticipation in wondering what it would look like if everyone at work and in their personal life just knew what their strengths were and loved what they did. And this is exactly why we've put this model together. So again, I will go through it at the end in terms of what it looks like on our website, but before then, I'm just going to take you through each of the stages. So the first part of self is being self-aware, so perhaps no huge surprises there. But it sounds obvious, doesn't it, really, I guess. But again, I challenge yourself, when was the last time that you really went deep into your own strengths? Most of us don't spend time actively, truly understanding, what makes us feel authentic, alive, passionate, or perhaps even drained. And in each of the sections of the model, we've focused on 2 different elements that you can apply to yourself. So the understanding strengths, so if you're someone that sells strengths into your organisation, you've probably got on board with the business case yourself. But for me, until people can really understand what strengths can do for them, they're often not paying attention, or they're not giving it the attention that it deserves. So thinking about connecting with that business case for you personally and at work, and get excited, get others excited by what they now know. My favourite one is always about the difference in having a strengths-based conversation with your manager and the difference that can make. But if strengths stats are your thing, we have white papers on our resource section of our strengths profile website. So I will leave this particular point here, but again, it's at your piece. We've got lots of white papers there. Strength spotting, if you're a Capster and someone who's been with us a while, you will know all about strength spotting, but understanding your strengths in action in the moment and at the end of the day, what makes a really good day for you and for others is really, really important. Using the language then to create common ground with colleagues and really appreciating when things go well. And then being able to talk about things that do make you drained so that you can avoid weaknesses and produce strategies to tackle them together. You know, those conversations by the coffee machine are really important if you can authentically talk about strengths. At the Discover Strengths, that's where we come in, obviously with your strengths profile, using the book to deepen your knowledge. Again, this book has been written with a real practical element to it. There's, within each of the 60 strengths, there are ways in which you can use it, develop it, talk about it, and deepen your knowledge around it. So again, really thinking about how that can take you to another level if you have a profile. And there's something we perhaps don't ask for very often is really getting feedback from others. When do you see me at my best? And being more obvious in asking people. Something that again we've learnt from a really early doors on strengths is naming strengths in the moment can be really powerful on what you've seen in action and the impact that it has on others. So that's the S part of the model. So we're just going to move on to explore. So the first part of explore is about coaching yourself. And again, the book can really help with that, as Alex has talked about. It's got coaching questions for each of the 60 strengths. So, but really, go a bit deeper in terms of, which ones make you proud, which ones feel like part of you. Why do these ones make you react in certain ways? What really drives that strength in you? What's the story in each of your strengths? And think about applying the right use in the strengths profile model of development as well. Alex has already talked about we use our realised strengths wisely, learn behaviours when needed. Weaknesses less and unrealised strengths more. Unrealised strengths are the bit that, as most of you will probably know, are that sort of golden rainbow of the profile, that real sort of dust-off opportunity to really be able to make a difference. But thinking about all of that, keep revisiting your profile and what should be dialed up and what should be dialed down in each of the contexts that you're in. When we think about sharing our strengths, it's sharing them with everyone, perhaps not just someone that you're used to sharing them with, your colleagues, your manager, your partner, your friends. Don't keep them a secret. Make them part of your language with everyone. And informal even, so what does it look like when you're doing hobbies together at home or watching movies? Tap into those strengths. Think about your formal sharing. What does it look like working with others, delegating? What does it look like on your CV? What does it look like in your LinkedIn profile? Being able to share those at every opportunity. And it's also about not just sharing perhaps the name of the strength. I have a strength in organiser, but why? What does it mean to you? What's the story? Relate them to your existing values and passions, your future hopes and dreams. Bring the strengths to life rather than just talk about them in terms of their name. They've all got a story, and everyone loves a story. So just a quick example here is counterpoint, one of my top strengths. And it came from a feeling of growing up that children's opinions weren't as valid or valued perhaps as adults. So we shouldn't really have these opinions too often. And believe me, I can almost see Alex smiling from New York, which is where he currently is now, and I'm in the UK. And I've spent many a time making up for this. But when I do have to learn to dial down an awful lot. So, it probably comes naturally to think about sharing them, but perhaps not in the depth that you've been used to, really making them count. So we're just going to move on to launch. Love What You Do is all about the book. So what you can do and you love to do, the new title of our book. And it's all about putting them into action after all that hard work, being self-aware and exploring them. So in terms of aligning strengths with goals, again, if you know us, you'll know all about, we've done some research around applying. If you apply your strengths to your goals, you're more likely to be efficient in achieving them in a quicker time frame. You'll also really enjoy the journey of getting there as well. So you may find yourself perhaps an automatic pilot with your coachees when it comes to taking action, but review whether using this is the right approach. Is it the best one? Look at the range of strengths that you've got. And past the 7 if you have an expert profile. Consider the task, the challenges you face, ignite the right strengths and not just your preferred strengths. And consider what strength combinations would work too. So I'm sure you've looked at your profile or again, use the book going forward. Think about your enabler in one hand, but what would it look like if you compared, partnered that with another strength, and the outcome you could have by using your enabler with your creativity or with your mission, and the difference it can make using them together. You also need to think about, as you're going for these goals, and I guess it's a good time of year to start thinking about goals, is the relationships that you might need and build, and the resources that you'll need to make your goals happen, and how will your strengths do that for you? What will you lean on? Who will you ask? And how will that happen in terms of the additional support that you're going to need? For example, you might perhaps align your mission strengths to keep you motivated to keep going and see it through, or you'll use your one of your maybe enabler or rapport builder strengths or relationship deepener to adopt more of a team success style instead. So really actually thinking about the resources that you need and how you're using your strengths. All about loving what you do. So think about the strengths conversations. Then we started to talk a little bit around this in terms of sharing your strengths, but this is where it gets a little bit deeper around aligning the one-to-one conversations that you perhaps might have with your manager. So align successes to your profile. So what went well? What strengths were you using? What didn't go so well? Prepare for your review in advance by sharing the strengths, the successes you've had with your tasks and those strengths that you were using, really showcasing your strengths in action and any feedback that you've got as well. Share any challenges that you face and how your learned behaviours or weaknesses might have been contributing to that. Help your manager out here. You certainly know from our experience, managers aren't always that great at having these one-to-one conversations, particularly around strengths. Help them out, bring your profile, give them the evidence. Share the strengths that have really helped you out, and share the strengths that perhaps you want to be using more of around your unrealised strengths, and also how you face challenges and perhaps how you've overcome them, or where they need to support you more. But really use that profile to leverage what you need from them going forward. And consider how your conversations here could lend themselves to giving feedback after projects or bigger tasks and goals, and really delving into those strengths at every opportunity when talking to others. So the unrealised strengths, then many a time there was someone new at Capp who came to me yesterday and said, "Oh, I've got an unrealised strength of creativity. I've not thought about it yet. I don't know what I'm going to do with it yet, but I was really excited to see it there." A very, very common reflection on an unrealised strength. So this is the time to think about, put a light on them, really. Think about how you're going to make them shine. So sharing the ones that you've identified that you're most passionate about using more is really important. So if you've got a profile, you'll have a list of 7 unrealised strengths. Now, some in there will excite you more than others, but there may be 1 or 2 that you're just really passionate about. So you might not have a plan for those yet, you're just particularly passionate about it. So now might be the time to really think about what would it look like if you're 10% more creative or 20% more detailed, focused on your tasks at home or at work. Which realised strengths perhaps think about using could help you out of your comfort zone when using these unrealised strengths. So really about igniting those unrealised strengths in strengths conversations, because remember from Alex's conversation, unrealised strengths are things that you're good at and you do well, but you're not using so often, so people may not know that these exist in you, and that's where the strengths conversations will really, really help. Okay, lots more on our website and in the book. I'd like to say I'm going to finish with Flourish, but I'm not really, because the final stage of the model is Flourish. But Flourish is all about the continual journey that you need to take your strengths on. As you know, in life you usually get out what you put in. So therefore, the Flourish is about continually flourishing, continually revisiting your strengths. So think about your strengths brand, and I've seen Colleen on the call actually, and Colleen is a huge advocate of doing things around people's strengths brand, and I know she uses the strengths families as well for this. But in terms of your brand, don't be tempted to be a good all-rounder. That might have been a school approach, but it's certainly not fitting when it comes to strengths, or even dial up all of your strengths. But consider your strengths brand and what you really want to be known for. Perhaps you're making a different strength. So I've taken many strengths profiles over the years, and when I train, I pop 15 different ones up onto a PowerPoint, and I showcase how my strengths have changed over time. And what we do see in this example is that over the 8-9 years that's that those 15 profiles existed, there's 4 strengths that just don't budge. Whatever I do in life, whatever role I've got, whatever personal things come up, whatever challenges I face, whatever joy I experience, there are 4 strengths that absolutely stay with me. And these are kind of my key strengths that you know, absolutely will define me, and I can absolutely see for the rest of my life probably. So, you know, what are those ones for you? As you make decisions daily, consider the impact that you want to have on others and the ones that you really want to be known for. I mean, I can be pretty organised when I need to be, but I don't want to toast on my 80th birthday for being this. This is when perhaps I would love my legacy or my mission to be championed. So when it comes to the right strength at the right time, Marsha Goldsmith quote that many of you I'm sure are familiar with, what got you here won't get you there, absolutely applies. So strengths change over time according to our context. The book shares a bit more on this, but we live in a world that's forever changing and your goals might need to change, or how you get there may need to be reviewed. Different strengths to support the task now may be more appropriate. You might have to negotiate with a new changing stakeholder. And also then consider what weaknesses you might need to compensate when you review your goals. So once you've set them in your launch phase, you know, this is all about reviewing, refining, and making sure you stay on track to achieve them. You know, the trick is to use your weaknesses less and work really hard with your strengths to achieve your goals. So in terms of my mission, therefore, my passion, my motivation, that got me to the role that I'm in now. But I absolutely look to my legacy, my enabler now, going forward to make all the difference to strengths and Capp in the future. My final point is strengthening others. I am sure that 90% of you on the call already strengthen others. We've got lots of tools that can help you do this at Capp. But feeding back on strengths, we've talked about that a little, but spotting strengths in the moment, naming the strengths. So that particular strength, I saw you use it, this is the difference it made. And you're really reinforcing and encouraging the strengths that you want to see more of that person use in the future. And we talk about setting, you know, to achieve a goal, you might need to compensate for your strength, so partner up with someone who may have that as a strength where you have it as a weakness, but also think about how you can put groups of people together, who have similar strengths, you know, really kind of igniting a project team or a team that have the same strengths and seeing the difference that can make when you set the right goals for those teams as well. So I'm just going to pause there because that's the kind of finale, as I say, of the self model. I would love just to really quickly share that with you in terms of our website and what that looks like, and then I'm going to open up to questions. So that will just give you a moment now to think about what you'd love to ask Alex and I. So I'm on the Capp website now. So there's an introduction video, and then the 4 sections, as you can see, work their way down here. There are videos, there's downloads, there's blogs, more videos here. There's worksheets as well. It's got the Explore section I'm on, your launch. So lots of different downloads, worksheets for you and for your coachees. So if you have coaching conversations, some of these could be in follow-up afterwards in terms of homework or assignments, something they can do on their own before your session, after your session, videos more around the strengths approach and the benefits of strengths. So I just thought I would share that with you. Okay, so that's over to you. We can take questions through chat, or you can raise your hand. We would love to hear from you. I'm just going to put myself on mute and hand over to Alex while we wait for some questions.
Thank you, Trudy. And I think we have a question from Sylvia with a Y. So Sylvia, I'm just going to take you off mute, and we'll be pleased to receive your question.
Okay, can you hear me?
I can, thank you. Fire away.
That's good. I'm a long way away. Yeah, I was just intrigued as to whether you've combined the profile in practical application, that is, with something like the Johari window, you know, or a similar kind of model where people can, you know, recognize that they've got these blind spots, for example, or they can, again, their unrealized potential.
Yeah, very, very interesting question. Personally, I don't think I ever have. We certainly will have conversations around what people recognise as strengths, what other people might see in them as strengths, what they think might be less visible. But I've never actually done that specifically linking it to the Johari window or an approach like that. But I think that would be a really, really interesting idea. I don't know, Trudy, have you got any experience or anything you would like to add to this?
As you say, Alex, we haven't done anything directly, but I think for us the blind spots are always the overplayed realised strengths. So I think whilst we think we're doing a great job, it's just how does that strength look like overplayed to others? So when we talk about in terms of the coaching field, we use our realised strengths wisely, and those that will know and use the profile at the end of our coaching within that section. We'll always ask, and are you in danger, or do you ever overplay any of these strengths? What's the impact of that? So an example might be prevention. Somebody's always looking to see what could happen, always on the lookout of what could go wrong. It's a brilliant strength in action. But overplayed, that can be quite negative sometimes. If someone's got a great idea and someone comes over the top of it, sort of dampens it down by saying, but you can't do that. Have you thought about this? And it might not work because of that. So we do kind of look around blind spots. For us, I think our equivalent for a blind spot would be an overplay strength where you think you're on the right path, and a coaching call or conversation will hopefully highlight areas in which you may need to dial things down.
Thank you. That's actually, I haven't really thought about the overplayed strength as a blind spot, so that's good.
Excellent. Thank you, Sylvia. I see we have a question from Valerie, so just let me bring Valerie into the conversation. And Valerie, we'd be very pleased to hear from you.
Thank you. I have two questions. The first is I have done an awful lot of work with the Enneagram, and I wondered if you've looked at how these overlay, because I think that there's a wonderful richness and depth in using the two together. And the second question is if the book is available on Amazon in the U.S., or if there's a U.S. way to get it, or do we need to have it shipped from the U.K.?
I will defer the second question to Trudy. I think the answer is that we are in the process of getting it on Amazon in the US, but I'll let Trudy answer that specifically. In terms of the Enneagram, it's another great question, and I haven't ever looked at strengths in relation to that, but I am intrigued to do so. So would be very interested in hearing your further thoughts on it. But let me check with Trudy and see if there's anything she would like to bring in as well.
Hi, Alex. So, yes, in terms of the first question, it's in hand, so on the .co.uk it's absolutely available, and unfortunately they just need to sort of stagnate these releases, so it is in hand, and hopefully it should be any day now where it's on the international sites for Amazon. So that's any day now. And again, like you, Alex, I don't unfortunately have any direct experience of linking those two together, but perhaps one for you and I to take offline and see what we can do.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Thanks.
We have our resident strength expert on the call. Can't see any more hands raised. Final opportunity. Okay.
Trudy, could you give an update on the book availability status? I think you said it's on. Is it available on Amazon.co.uk as of today, and shortly to follow on .com?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's available on .co.uk. So if you go onto our website and follow the link that's on there, that does take you to the .co.uk and is available now. And it went there first because it was obviously a UK publication, and the others will follow hopefully just as soon as our publishers can do that. But yeah, should be any day, I would imagine, but definitely available now on .co.uk.
Great.
Is there a question from you? Let's put you off mute there. Sorry to cut you off there, Alex. Susan had a question?
Susan's question may have been about the book, so we may have answered it already.
Brilliant. So final call for questions. We will be sending the recording out and the slides following the session. I know there were some of you that couldn't make it, so if you're watching the recording, you can always send us your questions following watching this at home. Okay, well in that case then, on behalf of myself, thank you very much for taking your time out of your busy day to celebrate our new book launch. If there's anything that pops up after today, most of you will know where to get hold of us, our inquiries at strengthsprofile.com, or of course you can come directly to Alex or myself. Alex?
Wonderful. Thank you all indeed for the time that you've invested with us today in learning more about strengths and particularly strengthening others. We wish you every success in going forward and taking forward our work together in strengthening the world and bringing strengths to more people. So thank you for everything that you all contribute. Thanks for all the stories that you've shared to help us bring the book up to date and bring to life more examples of practice and application, and really look forward to continuing all of our work together. Happy holidays. As I say here in America, and look forward to being in touch with you all soon. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you.